Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Search Bar. Really excited for today's episode. We got a great one on deck. We always like to start off by asking if your marketing has gone bitter or sour, right? Because you can just sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the Search Bar, where we're serving up insights for your digital marketing to work successfully. I am your host, Eric Ritter, SEO sommelier and CEO of Digital Neighbor, a friendly neighborhood marketing and SEO company based in Tampa, Florida. For today's episode, Cindy Haynes, founder and CEO of EraserFarm, will join us to discuss how to create standout creative for your business. Welcome, Cindy, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so, we always like to start off here, keeping it on brand with wine, with your roots, right? So I'm just curious, if you could just tell me just briefly about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, well, I'm one of the rare ones. I'm actually born and raised here in Florida,
Nice.
In Clearwater, then lived and grew up in Seminole and moved to Tampa after college. So
All around
I'm
the
an
bay.
original. Yeah.
On the bay. I
Yes.
love it. Very cool. So you've always been here. So just curious, you've seen Tampa grow and kind of
Yes.
seen the transformation, and I'm sure, there's a lot still ahead of us. So just curious, what has you excited right now?
I really think that the influx of not just people, but the brands and the companies that are choosing to come to Tampa is really the most exciting thing. Selfishly, I love the fact that it's becoming a big foodie town. So it's really nice to try all of the new restaurants. Yeah. But I think
Do you have a favorite restaurant that you can recommend to our listeners?
I'm going to keep that one to myself. That way, in case any restaurant's interested in using our services,
Yes.
I haven't necessarily leaned into one.
Got it. I love that. So note to any restaurants out there, Cindy is a foodie and can help your brand. And we're going to talk about that more today. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I just had to jump on that because there's so many great spots out there. Like you said right now.
And again, I think Tampa's a wonderful place, not just to live, but to work. And I think people are starting to realize that. And it's just a growing metropolis. We were actually part of the original beginnings of the development of the waterfront district area and working with SPP and the Vinnet Group. So it was really exciting to be a part of it then and excited to see kind of where it still has to go.
That's awesome. So you kind of mentioned by we mean EraserFarm, right? Your company.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about EraserFarm and yourself and kind of your journey? How did you get interested in this whole advertising, marketing, branding thing?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't at the beginning. I was, believe it or not, pre-med. I was going to be a veterinarian at the beginning. Yeah, so how I landed in advertising was just taking some funky class up at UF, and I'm like, this is it. This is it. Okay. Yes. And
you must have had a great professor then.
I did. I really did. It was a media law class, ironically.
Interesting. Okay.
And then I ended up actually coming back and finishing my final year at USF. So I officially graduated from the University of South Florida, had a wonderful professor there named Dr. Fudge, who is no longer with us, but he was fabulous. And I think it just really kind of cemented my journey through advertising. So I kind of went through the ranks and, started in small agencies. I was actually client side for the first time, first 5 years at Home Shopping Network. And I went to a couple agencies, small ones in the middle, and then landed at 22 Squared, which is one of the largest independent agencies here in Tampa. And then I went client side again, and I was the senior VP of marketing at a big restaurant conglomerate. And I had a business partner years ago that called one day and he said, I think it's time for us to go out on our own, start our own thing. So
that's always scary to do, right? Kind of becoming an entrepreneur like that.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How that went becoming your own business owner?
Yeah, I would say be ready to not have a W-2. So, prepare yourself for, cash flow issues. Mm-hmm. But it was exciting at the same time. And my partner at the time was amazing. The two of us worked together at a previous agency. And so this past March was our 10-year anniversary.
Wow, that's quite the accomplishment.
Yes.
Congratulations, 10 years.
Thank you. And the most exciting piece of it is I actually just bought my partner out, and I am now the solo owner and moving forward. So January 1st was my venture into doing this on my own, which is fabulous.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Obviously, anytime you take those big steps, it's always scary to take that jump, right?
Yeah.
And so very impressive, kind of the determination there, and obviously the hustle and grind that's behind that.
Those are great words, hustle and grind, because it doesn't stop. It just doesn't. One of the big reasons I think I was super interested in going on my own was because I was putting so much time and energy and effort shoving money into someone else's pocket, right? So I'm like, I think if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to work that hard, I'd rather put it into my own. And the timing was perfect when my business partner called and said, let's do this. So
yeah. No, that's fantastic. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about EraserFarms. My understanding is EraserFarm's fantastic at creative branding. So, just curious if you could give any advice to a business owner out there that really wants to create engaging creative for their brand. What would that be?
It's like the $1 million question, right? It's like everybody, how do I do it? How do I become successful? I think if we were to break it down, the biggest piece of information that you really need to know and you really need to be focused on is your target audience. You need to know who you're talking to. There's been so many times that I've come across either a business owner or even when I was on the client side, and let's just say my franchisees thought they knew who their target audience was, and they really didn't. And it's so important you understand them, what their journey is, what their day's like. Yeah. 90% of our decisions are emotionally based, right? So you have to make that connection between the brand, that product or service, and why the consumer wants to buy. So you really need to understand your target audience to be successful. I think that is the number one thing.
Got it. And then once you know your target audience, that's when you can start working on kick-ass creative
absolutely.
And brand, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because you kind of then know how to talk to them, the tone, what's going to be attractive to them from a visual standpoint, how you talk to them, whether it's comedic, whether it's emotional. Knowing that person makes you, it's like if you were going to write a card, let's say to your best friend, let's say just a holiday card to your best friend, write something out, or write a card to your mom. So two different things. Right. They're going to be two different things that
Great
you
example.
say. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It reminds me of the saying, doing creative for creative sake or to win awards, right? Because we can all make beautiful videos or beautiful pictures, right? But it's really worthless unless it connects with the person and, to your point, gets them further down that funnel to become a customer, right? So it needs to make that connection there.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can create an ad and we can do it too. I mean, if that's the pace that you're willing to go to, you're just going to dive in head first and create advertising, sure, we can do that. But if you don't know your audience or you haven't developed the right strategy, it can certainly fall on deaf ears. And I've seen it happen many a times. And so I think one of the things we're super proud of is that we have a couple of Effies. And if you know what an Effie Award is, it's marketing effectiveness. Really hard to enter, really hard to win. And we have 3 of them.
Wow. So that's a real deal, right? Those aren't just creative awards that you made something pretty, but actually that the advertisement or the ads were effective, right?
Yep.
And that's what it is about at the end of the day, right? That's fantastic. Do you have any recent project or campaign that you're maybe proud of that you can share?
Actually, yes. We have a fairly new client, Vivid EV. They're an electric vehicle company based out of Fort Myers. Kind of in their infancy stages, within their first 10 years of business, let's just say. And he came to us because of some work he had seen that we had done for our client Intrepid Powerboats. And from there, we just started talking about, what can you do for us? And it's looking at a golf cart. Let's just break it down to what it is. Right. How do you make a golf cart sexy? What do you do to entice people to buy it? It's usually need-based, big neighborhoods trying to get around. And so I think what we were able to do for him was this just kind of stand out maverick type branding. It's making the wheels look sexy, the customized stitching on the seats look sexy, and all done with amazing camera angles, lighting. I mean, we had a great crew working on the production, obviously, but it was creating sort of his manifesto video and literally giving him a standout in that competitive environment with electric vehicles. I remember there was a conversation we were having. So we did the first video, let's just say his branding video. Mm-hmm. Then he launched a new car, and it was called the Anthem. We named it. We developed the logo. Nice. No, I'm sorry. I think he named it, and we developed the logo. But he needed a new video. So we did this just killer spot. And we did a teaser for him first. So it was a way to kind of throw it out on social, tease the industry, this is coming, this is what Vivid is doing, just giving little parts and peeks at the car. And his email back to us, I'm paraphrasing right now, but his email back to us was, wow, let's just say you're our partner forever. And it was it was a really amazing feeling.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's probably my favorite, most recent project, is really sort of building up that brand. We've got another big shoot coming up in June. So
that's great. So one of the things I heard there is taking something that's maybe inanimate object, right? Something that's boring and bringing it to life, right? And kind of making it exciting there, where you're saying like making the wheel sexy, or kind of focusing on certain parts of it, so that way people have more of a connection to it.
Yeah,
I think that's
we did
great.
it with lamps too. I mean, talk about a lamp. Like who wants to? How can you advertise a lamp? And we did a great job for our amazing friends and clients at Ottlight, and you can see a lot of that work on our website. You can see how we really kind of turned that whole weird, awkward industry into something cool and fun.
Nice, yeah, and that's not easy, right? That's a challenge, right? And so, just kind of going back again, is to your point, is you need to understand the target audience, right? So that way you can then put that creatively together that's going to connect with them. So I think that's fantastic, kind of that entire process there. Let's move on to Barrels of Wisdom here, one of my favorite segments. And it's the name of the podcast. It's my favorite question. So Cindy, what's the last thing in your search bar?
Oh, it's probably so boring. If I'm being honest, the last thing, and it's funny because we were just talking about restaurants when we started, I was looking up the phone number for a restaurant to book for my daughter's birthday.
Nice. Well, so first of all, I want to acknowledge, I really appreciate the honesty, because you don't know how many guests come on and it's like a staged search, right?
No.
Or something that makes them look really interesting or cool, right? So want to acknowledge that first. I really appreciate the transparency, the honesty there. And so, obviously I'm big into search engine optimization, big into search. So just want to talk about that a little bit, right? So you were looking to find contact info for a restaurant, right?
Yes.
So what came up when you searched? Did maps come up? Did the website come up?
I totally got it off Google Maps, and I went there and hit the call button.
So you never went to the website?
Nope.
So it was, your transaction just took place on Google Maps?
Yeah, I would say, if I had to guess, probably over 80% of the information I need is in Google Maps.
Wow.
And I don't, and I can go to the website from there. I can hit the website link. And only really if I'm searching direct. So let's just say that, and I'll give the restaurant a plug. So we're going to Olivia in Tampa.
Nice.
That's my daughter's name. It's Olivia.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yes. So we were going there. So I knew right away. I just looked up the name directly. Yeah. But when I'm searching for something general, right? I don't use Google Maps as much, because now I'm looking for more information. I'm looking to be more educated on something.
Yep.
So I'm reading the FAQs, all those kinds of things first to try and find what I'm looking for. And then I'll dive into like 2 or 3 different websites and then go from there.
Got it.
But when I know something, when I know the name, let's just say, it's Google Maps all the way.
Yeah. And that's what Google calls that zero moment of truth, right? When you're trying to immerse yourself with as much information as possible. You mentioned you go to several different websites, kind of take in all that information there, but you already knew what you wanted and kind of what your end goal was. And so, that's just, any local business, if you're not on Google Maps and your data or your information isn't accurate on Google Maps.
Oh, Eric, I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because that happens to me more often than not, where you go to click a phone number and it doesn't work, or you're trying to find business hours, whatever it might be, and the information isn't there. And I mean, I tell our clients all the time how important NAP is, how important that information is the same across multiple search engines, not necessarily
NAP
just Google.
Name,
address, phone. Yeah. But having the information be present on those areas, so that way when people are searching, they can see fresh pictures and images, because sometimes you would just want to make sure, is this the right building? I remember being at the building. Does it look right? Just keeping that updated. It is actually such a large tool. I think sometimes businesses really don't understand it yet, or they don't give it the actual weight that it needs. So it's become like in our top 5 things of having our clients do and make active and manage for them 100%.
Yeah. And I'm sure with your focus on creative and branding, there's opportunities there as well. Because you can upload photos, you can upload videos, right? So you can stand out on the maps when people are, doing their searches there as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, Google gets really smart, right? So they know when you're throwing stock in there. So it's really important that obviously we're putting original photography. And that's why, we really push that with our clients, which, obviously we can shoot those images for them as well. It becomes a part of a bigger package.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, inaccurate information. One of my pet peeves is if you have a website and it goes to like your social account, goes like to your Facebook page, your Twitter, it just kind of makes me nervous, right? Is this a legitimate business? A lot of restaurants do that. I'm like, it's so easy just to go to Squarespace or Wix, just throw up a one pager, right?
Yep.
Just something so people know you're a legitimate business, because you're going to miss out, right, on people like me. And I'm sure there's a lot of others out there as well that kind of question if you're, how long you've been in business, can I trust you if you don't even have a website?
That is a question asked more often than you think by our clients, right? And it's true. You need to have the presence in all of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to all be 100% massive budgets, everything all in, $50,000 websites. You just need to be present.
Yeah.
On social, and you need to have, to your point, some sort of site, even a one pager. Yeah. But more importantly, search. I mean, you go back to your original question. Search is important. So when it comes to your business, I tell our clients all the time, if there was one thing I had you do, now this is assuming they have presence on a website and social, it would be SEO. The one thing I would have you do is invest in that, because search is king.
I couldn't agree more.
No, right.
Yeah.
No matter which search engine it might be, even Bing's still alive. I know people don't think so, but whatever those search engines are, it's to have that presence there. Somehow get above the fold. Somehow have your local Google business profile popping up in maps. Yep. Just be present there and put your efforts there. And when people start finding you, and again, it goes back to great creative that's flowing through your website, flowing through your social channels. Yep. Great images on your Google Maps, those types of things all help that branding overall. But SEO is probably the most important thing today.
No, like I said, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, people are going to research, right? They're going to kick the tires, right? Especially before they make a purchase, right? Anything from a car dealer, I'm going to make sure, what's their Facebook look like? What's their Instagram look like? Are they posting everything there? And so, because people aren't stupid, right? They're going to look at different places, right? And so that's why it's so important to have a presence. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be consistent, right?
Agreed.
Because nothing's worse than like, oh, this is a different logo on the Twitter than on the Facebook than on the website. Just doesn't,
is it the same brand? Like, you start to question, and that's where you hit that word, is this legitimate?
Yeah.
Legitimizing and making things the same across all those channels is so important.
Right. And even taking it back to, pre-internet days, you could judge a business based on the storefront, right? You would walk by, you would see, hey, the windows are clean, the windows are fully stocked with the products, the people inside look nice and everything. Okay, this is a real business. Or a legitimate business, right?
Yes.
And that now you have to do that online, right? So when people are window shopping, they're going to your website, they're going to your Google business profile, they're going to all your socials. So you need to make sure that all of that is spick and span.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we could give a shout out to Olivia, who's also the name of your daughter. So when's her birthday?
May 21st, she'll be 17.
Wow, that's coming up real fast.
I know.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're ahead of it and you're getting everything booked and everything, which is great. Well, let's keep talking more about here the barrels of wisdom, right? Is the advertising world is always changing, right? So what would you think is the best thing that a brand could do to stay relevant? So we talked about more on the digital side, right? So making sure that everything's up to date, but is there anything from a creative or branding side that you think businesses need to implement to stay relevant with consumers?
Yeah, I think aside from obviously understanding your target audience, I really think that it's ensuring you have a strong strategy, right? We kind of talked about it a little bit more, like doing creative for creative's sake, but understanding strategically how to approach something and what makes kind of brands tick or people's minds tick. I think they're very much tied together, but still separate. So I think if you were to break it down, strategy is the bigger picture, the larger umbrella, and through that you start to understand your target audience.
Right.
And I think there should be some investment in strategic creative development. It is what we stand for. It's really who we are. I mean, again, I can throw ads out there if that's what you need, but strategically based creative is what makes your advertising actually function.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's not necessarily just a CTR, is going to click through rate, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about someone clicking. And actually, even before that, it's not just about the impression, because that's the funnel, right? It's like you've got the impressions, then someone's got to actually engage with your ads, so click through it.
Right.
But where is that action? You need an action to happen after it. Right. And through strategy, you're able to understand like what's working, what's not. You can A/B test creative. So as long as you're sort of in that strategic funnel, then it doesn't matter if you have a single creative partner, multiple creative partners, everybody's using that same funnel to put work together for you. And then it's making sure that that strategy stays relevant. So you actually use that word, how to stay relevant today.
Right.
Strategy doesn't always stay the same year after year, years after years. We have a client right now that we are really re-looking at strategically, do we need to take a different angle? Because in time, things change, people change, audiences evolve. I use two examples to describe that. And they're kind of old school, but I think they're very relevant. So one of them is Disney, and I might have talked to you about this before, but I think Disney has done a great job continuing to evolve its brand, right?
For sure.
It's more than just a park, as we all know.
Yep.
Years and years and years ago, they added race events to the parks. And what that did was bring in a whole new audience of runners and their families to now go and attend the park after the races. And it's become a multi-million-dollar revenue stream for Disney. The other one is Madonna. And, you know, love or hate her, right? Especially now, she looks a little different now, let's
Absolutely.
just say.
I saw a picture recently, and I honestly didn't recognize her.
She is
at
not
first.
recognizable. So we'll take that part off the table. Okay. But go back to the 80s, right? Yeah. Where I grew up with her like that. I knew her to be that person. Yeah. But in the 90s and in the 2000s and even in that first decade in 2010, she evolved herself and her music, and she didn't alienate the people that loved her in the 80s and what she did with like Material Girl, right? Mm-hmm. She created new music and brought in a new audience and new fans that now you see following her even to attend her concerts today. Right. So she evolved herself as a brand without really what's important, alienating those that loved you first.
Right.
So I think those are two great brands to kind of
great.
talk about what I'm saying, why strategy changes.
Right. And, you know, using Madonna as an example is that's hard to do, is to evolve and change, right? So just as an example, it's like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC are still touring with the same music they made.
Correct.
Right? They haven't changed at all because people love nostalgia, right? And that's one angle, right? Like, hey, we're going to always stay the same, but that's not going to bring in new audiences.
No.
Now it's not going to help you change or evolve. So I'm just acknowledging how hard that is to do for an artist.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's a great example. And Disney, of course, you know, your example was just very tangible, right? Where they started doing, because I've run those races at
so
Run
have
Disney,
I.
right? Yeah, absolutely. No, we both run them. And it definitely is a whole infrastructure around that, right? The Disney hotels fill up, right? So now they have, they're filling their hotels. People are going to the park afterwards. They're filling the parks and everything in between, right?
Yep.
So it's really interesting, like how they can make those basically brand extensions, right? That without diluting the brand there.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that strategy piece is so important, right? Because go back and look at Disney's strategy when they opened up early 70s is way different than what their strategy is now. Absolutely. And even as their CEOs change in and out and the entertainment side of the business is analyzed more and more, and how they generate revenue more and more, and how they, let's just say, hurt or don't hurt annual pass holders with those new changes.
Right.
That might be a personal jab right there. But I think that's a great example of how strategically the brand has changed over the decades, and why it's important that you kind of keep a real close eye on, okay, it's working now, but we have to continue to look at it. And then it ties to the whole digital side of our conversation, right? It is so much easier today inside of our digital marketing world to optimize along the way, see what's working and make those changes. You know, before we had digital 20 plus some odd years ago, Is your outdoor board still working? Is your TV ad still working? It was all very long tail branding.
Right.
This is very quick. It can turn and engage people very quickly and create those sort of that you put the calls to action in there, and then boom, you've got a customer, a client, whatever it might be. So we can see it in real time where we couldn't before.
I love that. And I'm just coming back to Disney real quick, right? Kind of the strategy and everything. Just one thing I thought of is, I'm going to get this wrong, but like their brand mantra is something about like being like a magical destination or something, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I was on the phone with customer service and they end every call with "have a magical day," right? And when you go to the races, their motto is "every mile is magical."
Yes.
Right? So I like how they interweave kind of their brand mantra into everything they're doing, right? So, it'd be fun, like if they have a golf tournament, right? Like every fairway is magical or something, right? Like it works for everything, right? Because once you have that strategy in place, you can extend it to all these different other areas, which is magical.
That it is.
Right. Awesome. Cool. Well, that was awesome. Those were great examples, Cindy. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I'd like to talk about sustainability. Right, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I like to ask the question kind of to the guests here on the podcast. If there's anything, we're talking again about brands. Do you think there's anything that brands could do to be proactive and kind of sustainable in their advertising? Is there anything you're seeing or thinking of there?
That's a really great question. I think at the end of the day, sustainability is just about consistency. Right. I really think that's what it is, because there is no one single way to approach correct marketing, effective marketing. It's different for every brand. It's different for every person. That journey is different for every consumer.
Right.
So there's really not one single way to say this is the way to sustain. I think it's just being consistent. So make sure that you are active on your social, right? Make sure that you are active on your website. Google is very smart. And I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't, right? I can't stress that enough. Google knows what you're doing. They know what you're wearing when you got up the morning. They know what you ate last night. And if they don't see you active, right? If you're not putting new content on your website or updating content on your website, if your social channels are static, if you're, like we were just talking about Google Maps, if your Google business profile isn't active, then they serve you less and less and less. Right. So sustainability is just being active. I would say if you're talking about the bare minimum and making sure you're just in the game, be active. And your next step is then be creative, right? And then your next step is engage. And then your next step is obviously, securing the customer.
I love that. That was great. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the perfect pour, probably my favorite segment here at the Search Bar. We got the wine bottle here, right? On brand, Corey in a Bottle is the name of it. It's an exclusive only podcast. Guests get it, so you get to take that home afterwards.
Sweet.
So, maybe you'll invite me over. I don't know. I don't want to be presumptuous there. But we did send you Mad Libs, a.k.a. fill in the blank story, for you to create a wine label, kind of what would work for you, your brand, EraserFarm, et cetera. So I'm just curious, what did you come up with your wine label, if you want to present that?
Well, I was super selfish. And if you go on our website, you'll see we have a page dedicated to our mantra, and it's called Small is the New Big.
Ooh,
that would be my label name.
Okay. And so that's a great name, but what does that mean? Like, what are the ingredients for that?
The ingredients. So I think you said I had to pick two. So my two were probably a strategic-based creative, which makes sense. That's what we've been talking about all morning. And then I guess my next important one would be nimbleness, and that leans into the small aspect of it. I've worked at large agencies. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of levels, and I love our size. It sometimes scares clients. They're like, "Oh, can you actually handle my business?" I'd be like, "Dude, I've handled a lot of business. Yes, I can totally handle it." But really leaning into that small aspect, right? So small can, if I'm kind of getting metaphorical, and I'm pulling some of this from our mantra, you can see it on the side. It's like we can get into tight spaces where big can't,
I like that.
We can move much faster than large agencies because it's us, it's me doing it, right? It's, back in the day, the A team would come in and pitch you their business. and then the C team comes in and manages you, right?
Exactly.
Today, I sit in front of you at the beginning, and I sit in front of you every single day thereafter. Right. We don't want to get so big that now, personally, I can't be involved in a client's business. But if we did, we would still act just like the way we started, and that's small. I want to feel our client's pain. I want to understand what challenges them, what wakes them up at night, and then go in and help problem solve with them. So I think the nimble side of it just really leans into, your business doesn't necessarily end at 5:00, right? So call me. If something's going on, you're being challenged with something, call me. Let's figure out and problem solve together. It's more of a roll up your sleeves, hands-on type of agency. Yeah. We don't really have all that red tape. We've got processes, obviously everybody does, but we're more in the day-to-day and the grind with our clients than other agencies are.
I love that. I mean, that was so well said, Cindy.
Thank you.
I just really enjoyed that. Also kind of curious, because we're still talking about the label here.
Yeah.
Who's the target audience? Who's this blend for? The small is the new big.
Well, again, I think we don't really have a niche, right? So there's not like a certain industry that we go after, but it's really for brands or companies that have, and I'm being very general because I mean it, that have a product or service to sell. Marketing is marketing is marketing, right? I can apply everything that I know to any industry that's interested in working with us. And it can happen if it's, trying to sell a wheel for a car or the luxury car itself. It's all the same tools and tactics. It goes back to what you and I have been talking about all morning, strategy and understanding your target audience. That's really the keys to understand.
I love that. Well, hopefully I can try that blend one day.
Yes.
The smallest new big, but sounds like
I want you to make me a bottle just like this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can't wait. Maybe go to your website and learn more about that mantra.
Yes.
You just really sold me on it there, right?
Yep. You'll see a lot of our work and how all of that, kind of the idea of the mantra and then what we do strategically and creatively and how we problem solve for all of our clients on there. We've got some great work on there for you to look at.
We'll drop that in the show notes so people can find it in there. But that was it, Cindy. This was the podcast, and I had a blast. I hope you had a good time.
I did too. I'm so happy. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. No, this was a great episode. I can't wait until people get to listen to this. They're gonna have a blast as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, cheers. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Search Bar. You can connect with Cindy and me on LinkedIn and follow our journeys. We'll add the links that we talked about and also to the way to connect with us directly in the episode description and show notes. And of course, if you have any SEO or digital marketing questions, feel free to contact me directly on LinkedIn. As the CEO of Digital Neighbor, you can probably tell I love talking about this topic. We hope we filled your glass with digital wisdom and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Search Bar. Thanks again, Cindy.
Thank you.